We'll call to order this meeting for Monday, August 2nd. Carl, would you start us off with a roll call, please?
Councilmember Ronayne.
Present.
Remley.
Present.
Lunsman.
Present.
Reif.
Present.
Johnson.
Present.
Reinbold.
Present.
Langer.
Present.
Rux.
Present.
Mayor Schoeneman.
Present. Please stand with me for the Pledge of Allegiance. First order of business will be to approve this week's agenda. I understand that there's no changes, at least that I'm aware of. Oh, we'll have an open forum here just in a moment. Is that what you're referring to, Mark? All right, sounds great. Yep. Item after next. No agenda items to be adjusted, though. We'll take a motion on that.
Move approval.
Second.
A motion from Rux and a second from Reinbold. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Our agenda is approved. Next, we'll approve the minutes as printed in our packet from last week's meeting on July 26th. Can I get a motion to approve those minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Rux and a second from Councilman Remley. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Our minutes have been approved. Now we'll move along to our open forum where we have Sister Myra Remley, who's joined us here today. Sister Myra, if you would make sure that the little green light is on the microphone so that
It's
we
on.
can hear you. Perfect. All right, you've got the floor.
First of all, thank you so much, Mayor Schoeneman and the City Council for allowing me to come and visit with you a little bit. I'll give you a little bit of my background. I'm a presentation sister, and I worked with the Hispanic population here in the city of Aberdeen for a good 10, 11 years since I've been back from the missions. And so I've been working with the schools, social services, the hospital, the clinics, helping to translate and teach the people how to work through the system in Aberdeen in relationship to health and schooling so that they can get everything done correctly for their education and health. One of the things that I want to talk to you about especially is the situation of the dental situation here in the city of Aberdeen. I work with the dental van that comes in from Pier. I sign up children for the van. In the past, I went and I helped translate, but because of COVID, I'm a little stranded from being able to do that. But sometimes I do it by phone. In some schools, I translate by way of Zoom because of COVID. But in this situation, I had a little girl last week, a couple weeks ago, when she went to the dental van, and they were not able to do her anything with her teeth. They were quite bad. Earlier, I had taken her to Smiles Dental on 6th Avenue there, and they recommended a specialist that came to town, and she did work with one session with this little girl. She's 4 years old. She'll be 5 in January. And then she had to have 2 more sessions with the dentist, and unfortunately, this particular specialist it was her last time, and so she is no longer coming to Aberdeen. She moved to New Mexico, I guess, according to what Vicki told me out of Pier. She is the one that deals with the dental van in the state of South Dakota, and so we were talking about what we could do with this little girl to finish the work that needs to be done. Because if children don't get their teeth fixed even before they get their new teeth, the damage that they have in their first teeth could create a lot of damage for the new ones. That's why it's important for little children to get their teeth checked early to prevent this situation. Well, this family is extremely poor and came directly from Guatemala. And I did, a few years ago, the older boy in this same family, we had to go to Watertown to have a specialist work with him. First of all, we had to go one day to just an exam. We had to stay overnight, and we had to take the whole family, 3 kids and the mother, and I had to take a sister with me to babysit the other kids while we worked with the little boy. And so we had to stay overnight, and he had the surgery the next day. And right now, to this day, the boy is doing really well. Now this is his little sister, and I can't go to Watertown. It's a big chore. You have to take the whole family because she has no one to take care of the kids. And so this is just one example. I know when I talked to Vicki and also to Mary, who's the head of a Head Start, she's had to deal with children like this too, about having to go to Watertown. And so when this dentist left, the specialist that was working through the Smiles Dental office, there is no one. Now, Dr. Kaiser has helped us too. He has got privileges at St. Luke's to do oral surgery. But when I was going to go into that, I talked to Vicki out of Pierre, and she said she's been searching all over Aberdeen to find a dentist that has Medicaid. Suddenly, they did before, and Dr. Kaiser did. And so I could be wrong, but this is what she said to me, and she was trying to get the dentists in Aberdeen. They don't take Medicaid. So that takes many, many children not able to get to a dentist because many parents can't afford, if they don't have insurance, afford dental care. And so my request here, or question, what can the city do about obtaining a dentist, an oral surgeon for pediatrician, for pediatrics, for children? My heart was broken when I'm trying to figure out how to do it, get this little girl's teeth taken care of. We're trying to find a way, but right now we haven't got that solved because we don't know where to go. And so I just wanted to place this before you to give you, maybe some of you know of a dentist here in town that takes Medicaid and can do oral surgery. I have not heard. And when Vicki was calling every dentist in town, it didn't sound too hopeful. So it's just something that to think about and see if there's any avenues that you can find, because Aberdeen is the 3rd largest city in the state of South Dakota, and really needs an oral surgeon for children, if it's at all possible. And also to have surgery privileges in both hospitals, if need be. So I just want to get that an awareness to you, and that's my experience in the last number of years with the dentist. And thank God for the dental van, because they take children with or without Medicaid. If South Dakota didn't have that, or I should say Aberdeen, a lot of children wouldn't get their teeth taken care of. And they come 3 times a year, in July, October, and January. And I try to round up kids to make appointments and go so that they can get that work done. So that's the only opportunity that the children have here. I can wait for questions if anybody has any.
We've actually kind of gone long on this, Sister Meyer, but we really appreciate the admirable work that you do, and offering your talents as the translators really speaks highly of you. I'll take it upon myself to contact some members of the dental community and see what kind of avenues those guys would recommend. I know that it verges on charity work, of course,
Yeah,
for
a
those
lot of
guys
it
to
does.
take
Yeah.
Medicare
Yeah.
or Medicaid. It's an extremely low-cost alternative to the regular patients that they see. But I do know a number of those folks, and I'll be happy to, if you just jot your email down, on that sheet in the back, I'd be happy to get back with you on that as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. Thank you.
Thank you for joining us tonight. Move along to our consent calendar, where we've got the possible approval of 6 items of routine city business. Would someone care to make a motion on those?
Move to approve.
Second.
Got a motion from Councilman Reinbold and a second from Councilman Lunsman. Does anyone have anything to contribute on our consent calendar items? Otherwise, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. That does pass. Consent calendar is approved as printed. Next, we've got our new business, in which City Manager Joe Gaa will present us with the 2022 budget message. Joe, what have you got?
Yes, thank you. As we start into this, I just want to point out that to me, this is the kickoff of the reveal of the 2022 budget process. This is not a message that is the final message. This is kind of getting us on the process. So all the council members, as you came in, found draft copies of the budget, both the operating budget and then a second one on the capital budget. I'm going to hit on a few highlights tonight, as well as start to kind of preface some of the things we'll discuss in our work session next week. As a reminder, we will meet here at 5 o'clock to do a little work session on the budget. I expect it'll probably take around an hour to highlight some of the issues. Then we'll, with those discussions, we'll go back and finalize. You'll get a final budget copy in advance. We'll do the first reading on September 7th and the final approval of both budgets on the 20th. So that's kind of the timeline. We'll get into this a little bit. One of the things that's somewhat exciting, this is the first full budget I've experienced. I came in right in the middle of the budget season last year and felt more like I was watching from the sidelines more so than guiding the process. But the good news is our staff, this is a well-oiled machine, and how it works through finance and with Robin, the city engineer, doing a lot of the capital. We didn't change that process much at all. We pretty well did the same thing. But it seemed to me coming in that as we prepared the 2020 budget, we were very conservative. When I arrived last year, we were adding some capital back into that budget that had been taken out and some other things. And that was even before COVID. COVID hits and changes everything. And so we're in the middle of COVID last year when we do the 2021 budget. So again, another very conservative budget that we ended up putting some things in at the end. Well, when you do that, when you put some things back, there's likely some other things that were left out too. So I felt that was important going in, that we looked at really what our facility maintenance needs. Not that we're building new buildings, but maintaining the buildings we have. Seasonal and part-time staffing, all of our staffing is critical, but that's an area that we really struggle with. What are our staffing levels? What are our wages? And then what are our equipment needs? So those are the things we went into this with. And I want to start off, sometimes we talk about how much money we're going to spend. Well, you can't spend any money if you don't have any money. So I want to talk about the budget from more revenue side to start with than an expense side. So the 2021, the current budget we're in, the revenues are estimated to be at $26.69 million. To put that in perspective, in 2022, our actual budget came in, the actual revenues were $34.77 million. So quite a little bit more than what was expected, but that was because we saw some extra funds related to COVID. We saw sales tax coming in. That was good. And this is just in the general fund. I should probably mention as we start off. So this year, last year, again, 21, $26.69 million. This year, the proposed revenues, and these are conservative estimates, I believe, are $28.99 million. So really that tells us that's the most we can spend in the general fund. And if you've been around our budgets very long, that's what we do, is we budget to that number. So that's the magical number. If we take it all the way out, $28,993,705 is what we're looking at. So now let's back up that we're looking at our facility needs, our part-time staffing levels, and our equipment needs. So we have a balanced budget at this point in time. What you're seeing is a balanced budget, but that came after we removed $1 million worth of requests and changed some transfers around and a few other things. We will show you that plan and how we got there in the work session, but it tells us that we actually now know some of our priorities. going into 23. Some of our equipment, some of our projects, some of our facility needs, we already know. And so the purpose of that is when I said to the department heads, tell us what you need, we knew we couldn't have it all. But now it gives us a little bit of a 2-year perspective just in a budget by budget. So I think that was a little bit different perspective, and I feel positive about that. A few things, notable items, the bigger items in the general fund. This is just the general fund, not necessarily getting into big capital projects, are 3 patrol vehicles and equipment from the police department, and the digital radio conversion from the fire department. Those both come from some reserve funds in the general fund. So that's good news. A garbage truck for solid waste, and then again, we've mentioned it several times already, minor facility improvements for multiple buildings. So that's the general fund. So when you look at that, that's like we said, just under 30 million. When we come in, the total budget is much larger than that. But I think it's to highlight about 35% of our revenue comes from property taxes and 35% of the revenue in sales tax for the general fund. So that adds up to be about $21 million. And so that's the biggest share of that. So property tax revenue and strong sales tax revenue is very important to the city and being able to provide those general services. So as we move along into the other funds, like we said, that gets a total of about $7 million. Those are our water, sewer funds, a few of the other special funds. Add that up. But then where we really get to growing a little bit is when we bring in the other sales tax revenue that's from capital. And so when we talk about the capital, this is really where I think from a citizen standpoint is where the bang for the buck is. So some of the things that we're seeing this year that we're proposing for the 22 budget, again, a continuation of what I call a multifaceted street improvement program. We have accessibility improvements where we go in advance of street projects and make sure the sidewalks are accessible. And when you cross those streets, there's a lot of that work going on right now. That project's currently going for this year. And then the chip and seal project, which is great in our residential neighborhoods. We move around the entire city over about a 7-year course of time. Asphalt overlays on some of our more heavier traveled street. Concrete rehab, that's going to take a little bit more. We'll discuss this a little bit more too, but that has a little bit more presence in this year's budget. It's something we've heard from staff, we've heard from you that we needed to bring some more of that in, and we believe we're doing that. And then complete reconstruction projects. So again, at the work session, staff will advise you a little bit on what some of the options are, and we'll start to plan forward on that. The big thing that will be starting in 2022 is the planning and designing of a new wastewater plant. That's feasibility studies going on right now. We'll learn more about that. Matching funds for the airport improvement projects. We've had some great success in gaining federal funds for those, and really only about 5% locally goes into those projects, and that's great news. A lot of our debt payments for completed projects come out of the capital fund. A new pumper and rescue truck for the fire department. Sewer manhole rehab, that's something we'll talk a little bit about. That's kind of an added project for this year, something we've needed to do, and we want to start adding some funds for that. And then a water tower construction in an industrial park. This will be our matching funds towards a grant. So those are some of the big capital projects when you think about it. One of the things we will also look at here a little bit, I mentioned the debt service in the capital, is we do pay a lot of our debt out of the sales tax. So where are we on debt? Going into the 22-year fiscal year, our existing debt is $31,768,323. It sounds like a lot because it is, but that's actually a 31% of our constitutional debt limit. $101,424,309 is how much we can do. So I think if you look at a city that's doing the things we're doing, our debt service is relatively low. We know that when we do some work on our water plant, our wastewater plant, potentially our water resources, there's going to be more money spent. We'll see some rates go up in that, but we'll also borrow some loans from that. Kind of in essence of doing that, we see money coming in, but the interest isn't as high. So later on in this year, not much later because we're really moving along, the finance staff and I will propose paying off some debt early. So some of the 2022 debt that's in there, we suspect we'll pay that off. We know we want to pay off 2. We're thinking the 3rd. Again, we'll talk a little bit more about that in the work session. But alleviating some of that debt as we prepare to add some new debt is going to be a theme you hear in the next couple of years. So how do we end up when it's all over and we add all the general funds and the revenue funds and everything together? In 2020, our actual revenues were $78.91 million. Our 21 budget, our estimates going in, our budget number is 69.26. So we're thinking that we fall somewhere in between those two. Actually, a fairly strong estimate where we're expected to end is about 77.8 million is what we think this budget will end. And we're estimating spending about 77.7 of that. So leaves a little bit of overage, but it tells you that the city runs a tight ship. We're on a tight budget, and we're doing a lot for that. And really, I think the outlook has been pretty good. If 20 is kind of the year that a lot of people throw out, it was kind of awkward. Trends, it kind of bucked all the trends. They say 2019 is the year to go back to. I think as far as revenues and stuff, it kind of set a new trend for us, or at least I'm hoping so, that we stay somewhat strong. Maybe not as strong because there were some abnormal factors there. But I think moving in to the 22 budget, we were in as good a shape as we had been, at least in a number of years. So just to kind of tie this all together, again, we're at a $77 million budget. That's a large animal. During in advance of the August 9th work session, I'm going to ask council members to review the budgets that you have in front of you. I know it's a lot of material, but really focus on road projects. Again, the city engineer will propose what staff is looking at. Think about what do you see that we need to do next, and see how those fall in his recommendations. We think it's real important to have that input. Also look at the capital purchases and the capital projects and the sales tax fund. How do you feel about those? We'll talk a little bit about wages and benefits and some proposals we think on our salary scale moving forward. And then, as we mentioned, debt service reduction to reduce some of that, knowing we're going to have some big ticket items in the future to keep that debt service levy as low as possible. And then we mentioned to get to this balanced budget, there were a lot of general fund cuts. So we'll go through those with you, show you what those are, because I do think they set the tone for 2023. And that concludes my message that I think we're in good shape. I think staff has brought to you a good, complete budget. They made some responsible cuts to make it balance, and I feel positive and look forward to discussing these in the work session.
Thank you very much, Joe. A lot of ground to cover in this short amount of time. It's a good thing that we've got a week ahead of us. With that, we'll move along to our hearing on the special one-day retail liquor license on August 12th, 2021 for Aberdeen Area Chamber of Commerce's business after hours at Pearson Ford, which is at 701 Auto Plaza Drive. This would be for the approval of that one-day liquor license.
Move to approve.
Second.
And a motion from Councilman Remley and a second from Councilman Reinbold. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. Motion does carry. The last item of our regular new business will be review and approval of the claims and payroll for this week. We've got the bills list for August 2nd, as well as the payroll period from July 18th through the 31st, as well as all of the Social Security, old age, survivors insurance, retirement, health, and life insurance as well. Can I get a motion to pay all those bills?
Move to approve. Second.
Motion from Councilman Reif and a second from Councilman Ronayne. Carl, would you give us a roll call vote on those payments, please?
Councilmember Ronayne,
Aye.
Remley,
Aye.
Lunsman,
Aye.
Reif,
Aye.
Johnson,
Aye.
Reinbold,
Aye.
Langer,
Aye.
Rux,
Aye, but abstain on the payroll item for Mitchell Rocks.
Mayor Shoneman.
Aye. Motion does carry. Those bills will be paid. What does your son do at the
Lifeguard.
lifeguard? How does he enjoy it?
Loves it.
Good. Next, we've got the city manager's report. Joe, what else have you got for us?
One of the things that I kind of mentioned, our part-time and our seasonal staffing in the budget, I don't think we're different from anybody else in the city of Aberdeen, the state of South Dakota, really the nation, that we're seeing a workforce shortage. And states and cities are going to have to be competitive. And I had some really interesting conversations last week with some folks from some other organizations, and we think there's going to be some matching money out there from the state to look at recruiting. And it's interesting that one of the council goals was resident recruitment. So I think potentially at our next regular council meeting, I think we'll hear some of that. Those folks are working to put some things together, and we'll see how that goes. But I'm really comforted that the community members are kind of working together and say, well, how can we solve each other's problems without just stealing people away from each other? So I think that was a positive conversation, and I think we'll see that. And of course, my exciting time at the first of every month is the employee milestone. So in July we had two. It was kind of a short month, but two of them. Andrea Schwann in HR has the 5-year milestone. And then I always think these larger ones are rather significant. But a 20-year milestone, Rhea Ketterling in the airport. So she's been out there for 20 years. And we were talking the other day, I think she's been through 7 or 8 airport managers in that time. She's been here through a lot, and that's great. And then the third item, I'm actually going to turn to the city attorney. Once we get census numbers in, we have to redistrict, and we're waiting on those yet. It's been late, but once that time comes, we're going to have to move pretty quickly, and Ron's going to detail that process.
I just wanted to alert the council to the idea of putting together the redistricting commission. And as we're talking about redistricting, we mean all of the 4 districts that the council members are under now. Again, with the delays caused by COVID and other things, the federal census information has not been released even now. And that information goes from the federal government to our state legislature for them to start drawing up their district maps. It's at that point that the municipalities start getting some information so they can put these things together. But we're way off on our time frames, and I just wanted to let the council know that if you would, and I'll give you some information ahead of time, but Charter Section 6.03 sets out how we do this redistricting process. The first thing we have to do is this council needs to appoint 4 members to the redistricting commission. And ultimately, those 4 will appoint a 5th person. And of those 5 people on the commission, no more than 3 can be from the same political party. So my plan is to come to the council with a form, provide you some more information beforehand, but I will probably be asking the council on September 7th to make that initial appointment of your 4 commission members. And so, again, I don't know how you folks want to do that. If you want to, each district wants to get together and come up with 1 or 2 names of people that they would want to present as their possible nominees to the commission, but we just got to keep in mind that we can't have more than 3 from the same political party. So I will be getting more information out to you and getting you a clearer timeline on things, but the plan will be today that on September 7th, Tuesday, September 7th, we will have that first chance for either you to have the conversation and make the actual appointment, or at least get it on as quickly as possible. Our goal here, and it's going to be very compressed because of the delays coming from the federal government and then the legislature trying to cram it all together. Our goal is to have something done, the redistricting done by the end of February. And it's all going to crunch together really hard once we get that going. But as long as we've got our commission in place, as soon as we get that information, we can take off running and they can get possibly those new maps to you folks. Okay.
Thank you very much, Ron. And thank you, Joe. Anything else before we move to adjourn this meeting?
I got something. Robin, can you give us an update on the streets for like North Dakota and 3rd Avenue?
North Dakota, we will be doing, we plan to open it this week.
Okay.
Tentatively right now, we're looking at Wednesday. Part of that will depend on installation of some of the traffic control devices, the striping, things like that. If that goes well over today and tomorrow, then we'll be able to open it up on Wednesday. Otherwise, it might be Thursday. The work on 3rd Avenue is moving along. We've got, I think, all of the curb and gutter in now, And we'll look forward to them starting the paving process, and then after they get the asphalt put in, then we'll be doing sidewalks and the topsoil and things like that, and the tie-ins. So I'm guessing that's going to be 3-4 weeks down the road to get that open.
Thank you.
Was the timeline on Third delayed because of they were tied up with other projects, or was there a substantial amount of underground work that was done?
It's because of all the underground work. It's a very complicated process. We have to work with the adjacent property owners to make sure we're not shutting water off at the wrong times. And so it's not like you can just go ahead and do things just as you wish. You do have to coordinate. So it is much more complicated than, say, a Dakota Street, which had virtually no utility work to be done on it.
Thank you, Robin. All right, with that, I would take a motion to adjourn this meeting.
I'll move. I'll second.
A motion from Councilman Ronayne, a second from Councilman Remley. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
And opposed, nay. We are adjourned.